What motivates you to take the Ces-We? In this lesson, we are going to dig into what motivates you to take the Ces-We. It is important to establish a proper setting for our review program. If you exactly know what your goal is, half of the work is done. It beats the hell out of you when you run circles trying to run for something you cannot fully grasp. In the comments box, please write what motivates you to take the Ces-We. I understand that this is too elementary for third level officers like you. But trust me, you will feel good when you write down those words. You assert your vision. On my part, I shall understand your position and be able to work with you better in this program. But generally, what really motivates you is not something out of the extraordinary, mythical, or spiritual. This is best explained through the science of motivation. If we go down rock bottom, the chemical responsible for it is dopamine. The December 2013 article of Kiban Lee entitled Your Brain on Dopamine, The Science of Motivation in his This blog renders a scientific discussion on this matter. What is the source of motivation? To trace the source of motivation, let us begin in the brain where neurotransmitters spark chemical messages to keep us alert and on task. Neurotransmitters carry chemical messages that play out in your brain and affect the rest of your body. One neurotransmitter that plays a role in the science of motivation is dopamine. Dopamine's chemical signal gets passed from one neuron to the next, and between these two neurons, dopamine interacts with various receptors inside the synapse. This arrangement becomes much more complicated when you multiply the effect through the entire brain. Consider this. There are different types of receptors, neurons, and pathways that neurotransmitters can take. Things can get complicated fast. For motivation specifically, it matters which pathway dopamine takes. The mesolimbic pathway, which comes from the middle of the brain and branches to various places like the cerebral cortex, is the most important reward pathway in the brain. One of the mesolimbic stops is the nucleus accumbens. When there is an increased amount of dopamine in the nucleus accumbens, it triggers feedback for predicted rewards. Essentially, your brain recognizes that something important is about to happen, so dopamine kicks in. What causes your dopamine to spike? Dopamine performs its tasks before we obtain rewards, meaning that its real job is to encourage us to act, either to achieve something good or to avoid something bad. Most people thought dopamine was the neurotransmitter for pleasure. When researchers look more closely, they noticed strange phenomena. Spikes in dopamine occurred in moments of high stress, like when soldiers with PTSD heard gunfire. PTSD is a set of reactions that can occur after someone has been through a traumatic event. Those are hardly pleasurable phenomena, but their dopamine was. In another study, a team of Vanderbilt scientists mapped the brains of go-getters and slackers. They found that people willing to work hard had higher dopamine levels in the striatum and prefrontal context, two areas known to impact motivation and reward. Among slackers, dopamine was present in the anterior insula, an area of the brain involved in emotion and risk perception. As Yukon researcher John Salamone explains, low levels of dopamine make people and other animals less likely to work for things. So it has more to do with motivation and cost-benefit analysis than pleasure itself. Now, how do you hack your dopamine to boost your productivity? Motivation happens when your dopamine spikes because you anticipate something important is about to happen. Here is how it can affect your productivity. The brain can be trained to feed off bursts of dopamine sparked by rewarding experiences. You create the dopamine environment and the brain does the rest. One way to achieve those rewarding experiences is by setting incremental goals. Dopamine will flow because of your brain's positive reinforcement every time you complete a step and meet a challenge. Here is how to get your dopamine flowing. Record small accomplishments. A to-do list reinforces how you are chipping away at your goals. As you feel yourself making progress, you will feel the greater effects of dopamine. Share results with your colleagues. Communicating about your results, whether they are positive or negative, means that others will recognize your work, resulting in more positive feedback. Praising and recognizing the work of your colleagues can also increase your dopamine. Stay on task with micro deadlines. Staying entirely focused on one task at a time will force you to sit down and get work done. The more you do that, the more you will see positive feedback via your work getting done, which will increase your dopamine. Focus on how great you will feel when your project is complete. A study by University of Michigan professors found that results-driven focus motivated people to complete their work. This article reinforces the idea that nothing extraordinary or supernatural is necessary to motivate you to realize your goal. In this review program, I encourage you to stick to those suggestions on how to hack your dopamine. Throughout this course, we shall be continuously harnessing this power. Always remember, dopamine is your fuel to become a success. Say it again and again in your mind. When your journey bogs down, remember this lesson and shout out loud. Dopamine